Jeffrey is the average young man. He has no ambitions. He indulges in instant gratification activities like video games, porn, and junk food, and he works a dead-end job. Jeffrey would feel so much more depressed and hopeless if he actually allowed himself to face his life. But through constant stimulation, Jeffrey never realizes one brutal fact. He is deeply unhappy. Adonis has reached the pinnacle of manhood. He never even shows it off to you, but we can observe it. He's there with his beautiful, feminine wife who respects him so dearly. He's successful, wealthy, happy, but he's also humble. And look what he's doing. He's helping Jeffrey. Modern men are not happy. Not because of toxic masculinity or because they conceal their emotions, but because they have lost that which made them men. Our modern lifestyle is a recipe for depression and unhappiness for both men and women. Men and women both have very big problems these days. But as a man, I can speak for other men. And from what I've seen in the world, men aren't happy. Now, of course, as you go through your own self-improvement journey, you've been going to the gym and setting some goals and achieving them, you start to feel happier and happier and happier. But you look to your right, you look to your left, and most of the other guys that you see day to day in the gym, as you walk past them, you see them in the cars, they look so sad. Why are men so unhappy? Look around. That guy that you see who seems so depressed today, he's a 40-year-old, he's kind of chubby. He hasn't had sex with his wife in 4 months. He can't remember the last time he woke up with morning wood. His stomach keeps getting bigger and bigger, but his arms get smaller and smaller. And this isn't to body shame him or to make him feel bad for us to be mean, but this is like his own observations. This man, of course, wakes up every day, looks into the mirror, and can't help but feel upset. Why is it so hard to maintain an okay physique? He goes to the gym 3-4 times a week still. Sure, he should take more responsibility, but is there something bigger going on? Perhaps the destruction of men's testosterone? How about that teen over there, 14 years old? He should be having a good life, right? He's still pretty much a child. He should be, full of life and happiness. Well, he's got a TikTok addiction. In fact, how much he uses TikTok has got to the point that this young man, this 14-year-old boy, has actually developed Tourette's. And I don't say this as a funny joke or anything. This isn't funny. What I'm about to say is not funny. But this boy and the girls around him, they genuinely can't help themselves to have like some kind of TikTok Tourette's. Well, they'll just be like studying and just out of nowhere do like a dance move without even meaning to. He's broken his attention span from this endless scroll. But let's go younger because, children are full of life. That 8-year-old boy, he's 8 years old. He's going to go play with his friend, isn't he? That 8-year-old boy has a porn addiction. We live in some dark times. Andrew Tate took the world by storm, didn't he? He really, really garnered a lot of attention. And there's like people who like him, people who hate him, everything, right? The kind of people who really disliked him and said he was a misogynist and a bad role model for men. They said that, he's a symbol of the patriarchy and that he's evil and all this. I'm not sure. I don't think he symbolizes toxic masculinity. I don't think he became popular because of this narrative of like, yeah, we live in the patriarchy. I think he became popular because there isn't enough masculinity. You see men like Andrew Tate, myself, Sneeko, Iman Gaji, these like young male role models who seem to be very controversial. I'm quite sure that if the men of the world were happy, we'd all be unemployed or, we'd go do something else. But we wouldn't have gained like the popularity, the attention that we have, with this message of, men improving themselves, becoming strong again. If men were happy and just completely fine with their lives, why did we reach 1.5 million subscribers in the self-improvement niche that very rarely goes this high? Why did we get to 1.5 million when just 2 months ago we celebrated 1 million? Why are we growing so fast? Is it because of the animations at the start? Jeffrey Adonis, they're pretty nice. They're really nice actually. And that really helps people to like digest the message, makes it kind of entertaining and stuff. Is it me sat in a bathrobe? I think I'm like pretty inspiring when I talk in, this kind of like manner of let's go do some push-ups. But I don't think the majority of our success has come just because I'm so amazing. And this bathrobe makes me look so good, or like, oh yeah, those cartoons of Jeffrey and Adonis are so good. If we made this channel 10 years ago, I don't think we would have popped off anywhere near as much as we did. It's because men aren't happy. It's because a man's life in this modern day isn't actually that valuable. It's because there isn't actually that much good, that much hope, a reason to live for a lot of men. And it gets dark when we talk about this because as much as we don't want men to do anything to hurt themselves, the truth is, quite frankly, a lot of guys actually don't have much to live for. I don't say that to be condescending, but I want you to think of like an average guy's life. He's single. He doesn't have a wife or kids. And there's a lot of guys who say they don't want to get in a relationship, they don't want kids and stuff. I was going to make a separate video about this, but I'll just tell you very quickly now. I've been traveling around last year quite a lot. I think I went to like 8 countries, right? For the first time in my life, I actually like really traveled, went to different countries, different cultures. I went to a bunch of places. I saw a bunch of different kinds of people, different cultures, ages, demographics, everything, right? I saw a lot of variety in people. You know, one thing I really picked up of, most people didn't seem happy. There was one particular point when I would see happiness and joy in people around me. In all these different countries, in all these different cultures, there was usually one theme where when I'd walk past people, they seemed happy and they would smile. And that was if they were with family or friends. I can't even tell you if I ever saw a singular person, like, you know, just an individual going somewhere looking happy with a smile on his face. But consistently, the happiest people that I saw were families. And also sometimes I'd see like friends, two guys or a couple of girls or something laughing, giggling. A lot of people have abandoned the importance of family these days. And it might not seem important to you. Maybe it's just not in your mind right now. You're focused on other things, which can be good. You know, develop yourself up before you consider that. But just 100 years ago, for all of mankind, we actually got into families at age 18, 20. From the caveman days to the Industrial Revolution, we started our family with a woman and children, early 20s at the latest. For a lot of cultures, it was actually like teens, mid-teens, late teens. That seems like really weird and barbaric and stuff. And I think perhaps a part of, you know, the reason why that seems too early these days is financial. But let's just think, for all of our history as men, we would have had a woman and children age 18, 19. And that's just changed in the last 100 years. What's that going to do to us? It seems kind of nice. Oh yeah, no, yeah, I don't want kids right now. Okay, fair enough. It seems nice. But just think about this for a second. You would have left school or left, you know, some kind of training and known that you were probably going to get married within 2 to 3 years from now. Just think about how hard you would have worked. Do you really think you would have come home and just slacked and, you know, just wasted time? Or do you think you would have been really disciplined and purposeful? A couple of years later, okay, you actually meet the woman you can have children with, you get married in a religious way, mostly, you know, through the cultures for the last like 2,000 years, it's all been religious. You have a wife that you've married, officially married in front of the eyes of God, in front of everyone in your town. They're all celebrating. There's no such thing as a divorce. You can't get divorced if God's watched you marry. And now you're going to have your first child, your second child, your third child, age 21. And it seems really scary, of course, because that seems really young to us now. But of course, when we knew that it was going to be at this age, of course, you know, you kind of mature faster, don't you? Imagine age 21 having 3 children back when you would have been able to actually support them with your 21-year-old salary in some like factory or some farm or something. Do you genuinely think that that would have been a bad thing? I think only if we hold our current bias of what the world is like right now. And you know, if I think back to when I was 21, I think, no, I couldn't have had children, never mind 3 children. You know, I was a drunk, I was just partying, I was just playing video games, I was just trying to like sleep with girls and stuff. Yeah, of course. But if I knew from birth that, okay, you know, I'm gonna get married at age 18, I would have matured faster, wouldn't I? That kind of lifestyle would have changed everything for us. Because I don't know the exact statistics on this, but from what I can kind of imagine, if you saw some data of like, you know, humans' happiness, we would have seen it at a good level. Around the 1900s, late 1900s, it just starts to go down and down and down and down and down and down. Suicide starts low, late 1900s goes up and up and up and up. Year 2000, 2010, 2020, sharp rise. So is this all just one big coincidence? And yeah, family's not important, you know, there's just something else that's making us unhappy or something. That's for you to figure out for yourself. I'm not going to pressure you to, you know, have children right now. 100% don't have them up until you're absolutely ready. But this is just in my mind of what probably could be one of the major sources of unhappiness for us. But there's more to talk about, because remember I mentioned testosterone before. That guy that we imagined, some 40-year-old guy who's pretty overweight, and he wakes up day in, day out without morning wood. He notices his arms are just getting smaller. He doesn't pack on muscle mass like he used to. He just feels weak and tired. He's got more anxiety, depressive thoughts in his mind, which are symptoms of low testosterone. It doesn't seem so crazy for a 40-year-old to be like this, right? But I think what is crazy is that there's 20-year-olds with those symptoms. There's 20-year-olds who wake up with no morning wood at all. 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, men going through puberty that have such elevated levels of estrogen or however the hormones work. They've developed breasts. I was literally one of these kids, age 14, 15. I developed man boobs, and not from like fat. I wasn't a fat kid. I was, you know, a little bit chubby, but it wasn't fat. It was literally like breast mass that I developed because my hormones were all messed up. I wasn't developing like how a male should. Do you think I would have been happy around that time? 15 years old, seeing everyone else grow up. The girls are growing up and they're developing in the right way. Some of the guys are growing up, developing. You know, like there's that one guy in your high school class who had like a full beard, grew up to like 6'2" at like age 14 when everyone else still looks like little boys. He's there doing like multiple rounds with their future wife, bro. And we also need to get a little bit black-pilled here, because there's a lot of guys out there who are getting absolutely no intimacy, affection, attention, attraction from women. None. You know, it used to be 100 years ago that if you were a hard worker and at least not like physically deformed, that you'd be fine as a guy, you'd get married, no problem. And even those guys who were like literally deformed, I don't say this is an insulting way, you know, just I imagine, I don't know the statistics or anything, but even those guys that literally were disabled and everything, they were still getting married to good women. These days, it seems to be the case that you need to be at least 6 foot, higher income than 90% of the entire world, never mind just your country. You know, the standards to be eligible for a woman's attraction seem to be very high these days. And so a large amount of guys are black-pilled. The black pill is kind of this term where a guy feels like there's absolutely no hope that he can get girls. It's where he thinks, okay, even if I get into self-improvement and I build a really nice body, there's still no chance for me. Usually this is related to his genetics as well. So it might be a guy who's, for example, 5'3", really short. And he said, okay, no, even if I build like a 10 out of 10 really muscular body, girls are still not going to be attracted to me, so there's no point. I don't agree with that message at all. I think even if a guy is 5'3", if he makes progress to like a 10 out of 10 body for him, which is, like lean, muscular, not like huge bodybuilder, but like lean and athletic that women consistently rate most attractive in men, it would certainly increase his chances. It wouldn't guarantee him anything, but if his chances to attract a woman were like 0.85%, maybe it'd go up to like 1.5%, for example, which is still like a double boost. Couple that then with the personality change that he would go through from years of discipline to go into the gym and dieting, and he actually feels good about himself. He's proud, he's confident, he feels like he's accomplished something big. I think he'd be a lot better off committing to that journey rather than just giving up and saying, nope, it won't make any difference at all. I think it would make some progress. But of course, we can understand why a guy may feel totally hopeless in this like modern dating market. There's a culture of men online that think it's cringe to talk about hope, that we should just give up hope. It's the black pillars, they say this, right? That hope is cope. That if you're hopeful that you could eventually, get some love in your life and improve your life, it's cope. In that, like, yeah, you're just coping, keep like deluding yourself, it's not gonna work. But the thing is, it is gonna work. Because we've seen evidence of this time and time again with hundreds, if not thousands of young men that have gotten onto self-improvement, that have improved their mental health, their physical health, their appearance, by looks maxing. They've become more confident because of these changes. They've started working harder, so they've gotten either better grades in school or maybe a promotion in work, or even started their own business and started to make a pretty good amount of money. And all of those things put together gives you this sense of progress, the satisfaction of making progress to a goal, which is probably the number one thing that a masculine man values. That's where happiness comes from for a lot of guys. That's why I do the work that I do. That's why I try and work as relentlessly and as disciplined as possible to send this message out there to the men who are watching, to tell them there is hope. Because I was one of those young men who could have given up. I was one of those young men who very easily could have had all those negative circumstances where I would have just been totally unhappy with life. I certainly got lucky in some areas. I had a very hard working father. He was very disciplined. He was able to provide for our entire family as a sole earner, whilst my mom was like a sole housewife. As much as there was problems in my family, just seeing that dynamic of masculine man provides, feminine woman nurtures, I think that did wonders for me when I eventually understood the concepts of masculinity and femininity. I was born in Pakistan, which isn't like the best country to be, born in for like an early life advancement, but my father moved us all to the UK when I was maybe 2-3 years old. I don't know if this is really offensive to say, but it is something that I said, so I will say it to you. I live in Dubai now, and if you know about Dubai, you kind of know that, this is like really fancy place, beautiful buildings, everything. Everything is built from laborers who come from Pakistan and India. So literally you'll see the most beautiful buildings, the biggest buildings of the entire world, built by Pakistanis, Indians, guys. And they're always like, literally wake up at 5 a.m. They're already outside working. They all come in these like big buses that, they live on the outsides, obviously, because like this part of the Dubai is really expensive. So they live really far away. Every day, like the buses pick them all up, hundreds of guys. And you see the buses all come in with all these builders and workers, and they'll get off and they'll literally work for like 12 hours and then go back home. You see them all in the big buses, right? Me and Sam walked past the line of buses just a couple of days ago. And I don't mean to be offensive when I say this, but it is something that I genuinely believe. And I don't say this to be condescending or, I'm better than them. But we walked past these buses and I just realized something that I told Sam. I could have been in there. I genuinely could have been in there. I was born in Pakistan to a family that wasn't like incredibly wealthy, although like our wealth certainly did go up after I was, 2 years old. My dad got better and better jobs. But if, for example, I was born and my dad left or he passed away and I just had my mother, like as a single mother, especially in Pakistan, with that's, seen as like a really bad thing. And, she struggled to provide for me, and then we would have never went to the UK and I would have just went to the Pakistani schools instead. And so my sort of education level probably would have been lower because I have like a bachelor's degree in a British university. I graduate as 21-year-old Pakistani guy in Pakistan and then start to hear of better work opportunities in Dubai where a bunch of my friends are going. I could have been in that bus. And then Sam asked me and he said, what do you think they're missing? Why are we out here as the consumers of Dubai? We came in as the kind of like somewhat like wealthy guys who come in and we do business here compared to the laborers who come here to work here. What caused the difference between us and them? We're not trying to be rude here. Oh yeah, we're not trying to say anything like that. It's just like an observation, right? Why are people so different? We're 1 meter away from each other, but our life experience has been so different. Even though we're in the same location, we've ended up with very different lives. And I responded with education. Not so much school. I know a bunch of people who went to the same school as me, actually got pretty good grades, actually got like an okay job. And their lives, honestly, aren't that different to these laborers. Like they wake up, they have a long commute somewhere, they have to go work for someone else. And then, yeah, they get paid comparatively a lot more than the laborers do. But then when you take into account the extra sort of expenses it is to like, live in a UK city, it kind of gets like equalized in a sense. difference. Like, obviously, like the lifestyle for like a British person who's working some decent job is a lot better than the guys who work here. But it's not as different as you think it is. Either way, they wake up and they go to work for like 10 hours, big commute and everything, and most of their wage is just used on like living to work. So I realized it's not school that made the difference between someone who's higher up in society and someone who's lower up in terms of work, in terms of like your job. But it's the things you do outside of that. It's the awareness of the other side. I was incredibly lucky that at age 21, 22, I started to just stumble into the niche of entrepreneurship. And to hear these entrepreneurs, like these businessmen, talk about the money they were making, it just started to blow my mind. There was 2 books that I read age 22 before I ever even worked like a proper full-time job that changed how my mind worked, and eventually was like the first little move to push me into this direction of being more like a businessman, and eventually, I made the YouTube channel. Those books were The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. And this book, The Millionaire Fastlane, truly changed my life forever. I did a full guide on this with the author of the book, which will have pop up as a card. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, entrepreneurship was one of the biggest happiness boosters that I've had in my entire life. We're gonna get very specific now, right? I've looked into the research of happiness, and it turns out that most of the things that you think would make you happy won't actually make you happy. If you buy a fancy car, your happiness slightly boosts up and it goes back to baseline. In fact, it actually goes slightly below baseline. If you buy a nice watch, exact same thing. But some of the things that cause the highest amount of happiness boost in a person was simply just their habits, what they spend their time doing. And it turned out that having autonomy, being able to choose what you wanted to spend your time on, was incredibly important for a man's happiness. This isn't for me to tell everyone, yeah, be an entrepreneur is so amazing. It's very, very difficult. It's something you really have to sacrifice a lot for. But it's, at least for me, where I found a huge part of my happiness. Because very luckily for me, I was able to build relationships from the entrepreneurship journey that I went on. Remember when I told you that when you look around, the only happy, joyful people that you see are generally people who are actually socializing, who are with friends or family. I started loads of businesses, but I was just lucky enough to start this as a business, as like, this whole thing was a business to begin with. And I just ended up becoming best friends with my first ever employee. And because of the lifestyle that I was able to build with this entire movement that we have here, I was able to meet more and more people. And that's how I became a happy man. One thing I will tell you, if you just care about my own personal life, I realized just a few days ago that I'm nowhere near as happy as I used to be. I'm nowhere near as positive as I used to be. Honestly, I think I've changed for the worse in a couple of big, important areas. I've become very arrogant with my success. I've become quite egotistical. And I'm not sure exactly how this works, because I still feel like, there's so much more to progress. Every day I wake up with goals in my mind. I still want to make progress. It's not like, I sit down and think, yeah, I'm done. I'm so amazing. There's nothing else to do. But I certainly have built up this thing of like, yeah, I'm better than everyone else. And so everyone else is bad. And if you don't do it my way, then your way's wrong and everything. And there's a lot of things that I've realized just in the past few days that I need to check myself on. It took me a while to realize this, but this is the nature of self-improvement as a man. I watched back a video of mine, which I made over a year ago. If you're an OG of the channel, if you've happened to stumble on some of the older videos that I released late 2020, early 2021, you'll notice that I seemed a lot different. I was a very, very happy young man. I learned about the science of happiness and just literally put it into action. I'm striving to be a bit more like younger Hamza. Click and watch this video right now. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.